Go. All right, Sam.
I hope that's clear. Is that right? Thank you, Ed. Perfect. Shall we move next?
Hey, Lee, this is the Chancellor, the guy that I was telling you about that I'm most impressed with.
Chancellor. Yes,
I'll get you some minutes of footage of his...
I mean, it's clear that the economic fallout from this is going to disproportionately hit the young. I'm thinking of particularly people joining the labour market. Looking forward, can you commit to maintaining policies like the triple...
That's in there.
For instance? What's your message to younger people? And to the medics, if I could ask, do you have any data on the proportion of new cases which are hospital-acquired infections of COVID or acquired in care homes?
Put the volume up, Sam, love.
That are above 1 in those settings. We understand that they're below 1 in the community.
Keep going. Yeah, keep going.
Some granularity on the data of hospital-acquired infection, please.
That's right, love.
Francis, thanks. You're kind of drawing me into writing future budgets here today, which is probably a difficult thing to do. But to your general point about young people and the role and the part they've played in this, I pay enormous tribute to them. And, whether it's, very young children who are not able to go to school, take exams, it's enormously disruptive to them, and they're trying to operate at the best that they can, and they're doing in difficult circumstances, trying to do the best they can. And then all the way up to, people in the labour market, as you talked about. My message then would be, thank you for everything you're doing. When I see all the reports of people volunteering, young people in their communities who have the time to help out an elderly neighbour with shopping or volunteering on our new NHS app and other systems, that to me is our society coming together, everyone realising they can play a different role to help us as a country get through this, and that deserves enormous praise. From an economic perspective, whatever age you're at, our job is to provide opportunity for you when we come out of this. So to me, it doesn't matter whether you're, young, middle-aged or old, whether you live in London or in the countryside in the southwest or indeed in the northeast of England. We want to make sure that there's economic opportunity for you. That might mean that you want to start your own business. And so as we come out of this, I want to look at making sure that this remains one of the best places in the world to start and grow a business. Is this the best place to go and study and research the next generation of whether it's vaccines or indeed anything else that our country is so good at doing to create the next companies of the future, right? So I will look at all of those things and make sure that the plans we had in place before are the right ones. What can we do to turbocharge them even further? Because if you're young and entering the labour market, I want you to look forward and see opportunity and hope for your future. And I'm confident that we will be able to deliver that as we exit this crisis.
Should I say something about hospital-acquired infections? Yvonne might want to comment too, and Yvonne might want to say something about care home infections. So the first thing I'd say is we take infections.
Francis, that answer as comprehensively as they can, hopefully.
Well, just to be absolutely clear, there is no number of hospital-acquired infections.
So the data is being looked at the moment, and I think you specifically asked about the R number, which is infection rate, and the data is not clear enough yet to be able to give that number or to calculate that number.
Thank you, Francis. Turn next to Tom Newton-Dunn at The Sun.
Chancellor, thank you very much. A question on the furlough schemes, loans and grants that you're supervising. There's been a lot of complaint from sectors like the British Chamber of Commerce and others that, although welcome, it's just simply not happening fast enough. The money's not getting out the door fast enough. Payday, a lot of companies is coming up on April 25th.
What volume am I on, Sam?
After which
what volume am I on?
Won't survive unless they have that money in time. So can you give a guarantee today that your furlough money the portal will be open by April the 25th and money will start to leave the Treasury to these companies by then April the 25th? And a quick question to Yvonne and Steve. Going back to the France-UK comparison on the daily mortality figures, it is simply unfair to compare them, to put those figures on the same chart, is it not? Because effectively you're comparing apples with pears, one with care home deaths, one without. Do you accept that if you just compared hospital deaths between France and the UK would be above the French line for some time now?
Thanks, Tom. You mentioned 3 different schemes, and you're absolutely right to do that and do keep pushing, right? Because we need to make sure that the interventions we're putting in place reach the people that they're designed to help. In terms of the grants to small businesses, that money has obviously left central government and gone to local government who are administering those grant schemes. I think the last numbers I saw showed that about a third of it had already been dispersed to businesses at £3 to £4 billion, but there's still obviously more to go. I spoke to the local government Secretary of State today about that, and he's intensifying his efforts and scrutiny to make sure we can get that money out the door as fast as possible. In terms of the loans, I think there's been enormous improvement from where we were at the end of the week before last, where there were about 1,000 loans that had been issued. That number is now up, I think, 4 times to the end of last week. The amount of, in terms of millions of pounds that have gone out the door, is up, I think, 5 times. The changes that we made, I think, are making a difference. I'm grateful to all the bank staff who, I know many at the large banks have worked over the Easter weekend to help work through the backlog of applications that they had. So I thank you to all of them for doing that, which I think will mean that we see an acceleration in those numbers in the coming days as well. But we're keeping a careful eye on that, as you would imagine, and I'm in close contact with the bank CEOs. And then lastly, on the furlough scheme, what we said when I announced this scheme was, to reiterate, we've never had something like this in the UK before. As you've seen from the OBR report today, it potentially might cover millions of people, and we had to build a brand new system from scratch to handle that. And that is what is dictating the timing. The team have been working night and day since the announcement to get this up and running. What our plan is, I've always said that the scheme would be up and running by the end of April. That's our intention. I think where we are at the moment is we are on track to deliver that. The system is built. We're in the process of testing that with small groups of employers at the moment. It will open, is the plan, on the 20th of April, is the working assumption, that it will open on the 20th of April for applications, and then there is a period of several days between submitting an application and receiving cash. That's comprised of 2 chunks. One is our desire and need to do some fraud checks, as you would rightly expect, because we need to make sure that the taxpayer is protected against fraudulent claims. That takes us a little bit of time to do, and then the remainder of the time is the back system in order to get the money back to people. But the timing of the portal should be open on or around the 20th, and then from there there's a period of days, several days, to get the cash, but you should be able to get the cash before the end of the month if everything goes to plan. And then Steve, did you want to pick up, or was it Yvonne?
Yvonne, do you want?
Well, I can start. So, yes.
The loan guarantee scheme is certainly also under a lot of criticism from people who say you should be taking 100% of the risk, certainly for the smaller companies, for loans under £250,000. One of your predecessors, George Osborne, has said today you should do that. Will you think about doing it?
Yeah, when people say, I should take 100% of the risk, it's not really me, it's actually all of us, right? It's the taxpayer taking 100% of the risk of the loans defaulting and removing at that point any credit check that the bank might do. So, look, having said that, is there an argument for looking at something like that? Of course there is. There's systems like that are in place in Switzerland and in Germany. Germany have just put a system in place right at the end of last week that they got approval to do. So we continually look at everything that other countries are doing to see if there are things we can learn and improve from. What I would say is there's an economic and fiscal question as to whether it would be the right intervention for us. We are also doing a lot of direct cash support to businesses through the grants that you asked about and I mentioned, £10,000, £25,000 cash grants. We've also done huge business rates tax cuts in the tens of billions of pounds. So, those collectively are quite significant. Not every country has replicated those direct cash help to businesses. But, as I said, we continue to keep everything under review and look at everything to see where improvements might be made. I think the last thing, sorry, to add on that is, as you asked before about the furlough scheme, we have to be confident that whatever we come up with is actually deliverable. And some of the countries that have put these things in place elsewhere have historic systems that are able to deliver them. That is not the case in this country. We have not done things like this before, which means we don't have the capability in the systems to deliver something necessarily just because you see it in another country. And I think on loans in particular, you've seen, whether it's the US, whether it's France, whether it's actually Germany as well, in all their domestic press and media, and business organisations, you have seen frustration with the pace of the loan programmes, because all of these countries, like us, are doing things that they haven't done before, and that there's a genuine just delivery question about that. Thanks very much. Can we turn next to Dan O'Donoghue from the Press and Journal, I think?